Hello everyone, I'm making a little video. I actually this wasn't originally supposed to be my first video on this channel, but here it is. This is my first video. There is a show. I'm making a show coming out. It's going to be coming out on when have I premiered it? I believe it's the 10th of August. So it's this not this Saturday, but the next coming Saturday from this upload, which is a little bit more of a light-hearted one. But in this one, I'm going to talk about something quite deep, something quite serious, and something that I've personally faced for many years. Is depression. So I've dealt with depression for a long period of time, and it's not something I would say in the difference between kind of the height of my depression and now is quite a significant difference of hope. I feel between now and then I am now in a status of I do experience depression. I do wake up some days and it's just feeling like that does still happen. However, in my broad sense of it and my kind of outlook, I feel like now at a point where I can really grasp hopefulness instead of kind of hopelessness. And I'm going to get to the reason why. I'm going to get to the reason why that personally looks like that for me. And with this video, I wanted to do a little analogy. And this analogy is kind of one that kind of came to me. And the way this kind of comes in the way down I kind of think, and it's a bit strange. If you watch my show, it's coming out, you kind of see what I mean when I say it's kind of strange, because, but I have a very strange way of thinking, and for some reason when it comes to deep topics like this, and when it comes to kind of really, I want to say tense, but kind of really, that has a lot of depth, with situations have a lot of depth to it, like topics have a lot of depth to it, I tend to kind of work them out in a sense of analogies, and that's how I kind of figure things out, that's how I work things out. And what I wanted to do today, just for this short video, is just to share an analogy that kind of came to me. So depression is kind of like a sack of bricks. This sack of bricks, you kind of lumber on your back, you got it over your shoulder, and it really strains what you do. It weighs you down, it holds you in place, it makes tasks much harder because of the weight of this sack of bricks you got over your shoulder. So the way people deal with this sack of bricks looks very different between a lot of different people. Some choose to ignore it and then just ignore that it's ever there and just try to get on. Others can't get it out of their own sight and just can't seem to, separate their mind from the sack of bricks that was weighing them down. And what we do with the sack of bricks when we are trying to engage with life and when we're trying to do things and trying to, live life, I think in many instances this sack of bricks really puts a strain on that. And I think in the sense when we try to achieve something or we try to do something that we would otherwise believe we could do, this sack of bricks seems to put a strain on us. So as we're walking, it can weigh down our legs. As we're talking, it can divert our conversations. And what happens is then you're left with a sense of, well, why couldn't I handle that? Why couldn't I deal with this situation? And whether you ignore it or it's full of your mind, each time you kind of beat yourself up over not being able to do what you were previously feeling you were able to do, or something that you're looking back on and thinking, why could I do that? And you feel this kind of guilt. And when you punish yourself for those moments, it's like having this sack of bricks causing you trouble, and because of the sack of bricks, it's prevented you from doing something, and in return, because you've held this guilt or you've held this resentment over your inability to be able to do something, you've punished yourself by putting another brick in that sack of bricks. And all that really does in that sense is kind of add to that problem of the sack of bricks. It starts weighing heavier and heavier every time you do something that kind of you hold resentment over for yourself, or something that you really felt guilty about, or something that you is anything that kind of confronts you and you're left with a sense of, I don't like myself right now, and because of this, or because of I did that, or because of every time that happens, with that adding a sack of brick, all that does is make that bigger sack of bricks, and what that inevitably does is it makes those tasks even harder, because now it weighs heavier. And then the next time it happens, it weighs heavier again. And then it goes into this cycle. And I think a lot of people can sympathize with that feeling of just being like, this is only ever getting heavier. Why, what's the point? Why, every time I engage with something, it feels like I'm being weighed down more and more. And that's a very I can very much sympathise with that. I've been in moments in my life where I felt like I'm so weighed down by what's going on and by myself that I would punish myself in the sense of I should be getting up. I should be being able to be present with my family. I should be able to be present with, being a constructive person. I should be able to be helpful to people. I should be able to be encouraging of people. I should be able to be the person I feel I should be and how I feel I should be to others. And in those moments, looking back, I feel that I was very much when I thought these thoughts, I was very much adding those bricks into my bag, and so sometimes it can feel like those bricks have weighed you so far down. It feels like you can't even get up in bed in the morning, and it feels like you can't do anything because you're so weighed down by this huge weight that you've got on your back, that you feel you can't do anything, and you can't get up, you can't engage with who you want to be, you can't be supportive of the people you want to be supporting, you cannot be contributing or being constructive to others because you're so weighed down in this situation, and you're left with this sense of just self-resentment because you look back and you see how it was only your fault that you're there, and it's that sense, that feeling, all that does is it adds away again and again, and it can feel very, very dystopian in those moments. But there is a way, in terms of this analogy, and in terms of depression as a whole, there is a way where you can start to unload those bricks, and it's not an easy thing. It's not. I think a lot of people say, just do this to be happy, just do this, you'll beat depression. It's not easy. There is a way that you can unload those bricks, and instead of it being something that weighs you down, it could be something that constructs. Using this analogy, this is how that kind of looks. So you're presented with a situation, right? And in this situation, this is where you would put a brick in your bag. This is where you would say, why couldn't I do this? Why couldn't I engage the way I wanted to here? I am at fault. I am wrong. I should be polished that I'm wrong. I should feel bad for what I've done wrong. Because it's at my fault that this is all the case. When you see those moments like that, you have that brick in your hand. That's what you've got. The situation, you've got the brick in your hand. So the typical sense, obviously, about depression is you put that in your bag. But that doesn't have to go in your bag. It doesn't. What you can do is you can see the brick for what it is. You can look at it and be like, this is a situation I wasn't able to accomplish the way I wanted to. This is a situation which either may have affected other people. It may have been short of what I expected of myself to be able to do. It may be something that I want to be able to achieve a bit more easier, and it's something that should feel more natural to me, but it doesn't. And what you have is this brick. So you've got obviously the two choices: either choose to throw it in your bag, accept defeat, and throw it in your bag, let it weigh you down, and let it, hold you in place more and add to that weight of that bag. Instead, what you can do, instead you can acknowledge that brick and see, acknowledge that brick exists and it's there and it's a situation. And then instead of rejecting it and instead of, being defeated by it, you can see it as something to accept. And that's not, that is not easy at all. It's what I mean by acceptance is when you have a moment where you feel that you missed the mark, you can see that, and instead of saying, no, it's because of my fault, all of that, you can put it in front of you and say, well, I couldn't do this today. I couldn't manage this today, or I fell short in this moment today. What went into that? I'm aware because I deal with situations and because I deal with this kind of glooming sadness and state of depression. I know that that is the reason why I felt I wasn't able to properly connect to that situation, and because my mind was out of it or weighed down, I know that I wasn't able to perform that way or the way I wanted to. What you can do then from that point, instead of resenting yourself because of it, you can choose to say, well, I can improve here, or I can do what would I have done, or question what would I have done as the person I wanted to be have been able to be encouraged by that, and in terms of how would I have been able to acted in that moment, what should I have been able to have say, what should I have done, or how should I have acted in this situation that would have affirmed who I want to be. What would have left you feeling fulfilled in that sense, in a way. And when you acknowledge that actually this is the way I would have done it in this situation, this is the way I would have applied myself here, this is the way I would have wanted to handle this. Once you've kind of figured that out, and sometimes it may not be a case where you figured out, so I don't really know what to do here. That's okay. There's moments where that gets confusing. And when it gets confusing, instead of saying, I can't do it because this is confusing, or I can't figure it out what I was supposed to have done here, instead of putting that and throwing it back to the resentment corner, you can say, okay, and in the acknowledgement of that, I don't know what to do right now. But then you still have that information to know what to do, because in a sense, you've now acknowledged that understanding what to do is part of that, and it gives you a direction. It's just saying, I want to understand what to do here. I want to know how to answer that question. I want to kind of figure that out. So it gives you a direction of where to go in kind of that process. But if you do know the answer, you also know the direction to go, because you've now got a situation where I know the way I should have been able to do that. This is what I want to weigh myself to. This is what I want to encourage myself to do. And now it comes to kind of evaluating that kind of part. It's like, is it too high? Is it to like a perfectionist level where it's kind of like insurmountable perfecter? In other words, you can't, like, it's so idealistic that it's almost insurmountable. It's like, I need to make every comment I make, or everything that I do needs to go completely perfectly. If you do that, it kind of puts you in a position where you will never be able to fulfill that kind of ideology of yourself, because it's so narrowed to perfection. We as a people are imperfect. We can't perform everything completely right. It's a human situation to be in a situation where you will fall short of perfection. So there's a point in a perfectionist ideology where it's like, everything's going right, and then you get to that point where you realise it kind of that, you're as human as everyone else, in the sense of we do not have that ability to be perfect. And I think that's adjusting that peak and adjusting that height, I think is very important, especially if you're a perfectionist in that sense, and you hold yourself so heavy against that, in adjusting that sack of bricks on your back, because if you have that so high, you will only ever add a sack of brick, because if it's too high, you're always going to fall at that singular point. Why don't you think about adjusting that peak? So moving it to a position where you know you can go up to this point and you know you can continue it there. How about I go to here and then see where that takes me from that, and acknowledging that I can't achieve greater than this. I know that this is my limit. If I go to there, I can then leave that situation knowing that I may not have been able to reach the level I wanted to reach, but I was able to reach a level which was constructive. And I think once you do that, I think it starts to shift things away. So it comes to a point where you start acknowledging the position where you are comfortably succeeding. And I think as you do that, it starts to construct a bit more of a relative ideology about yourself. And I think that's how you move through into getting those bricks and putting them in places that are achievable and that are constructive and can work. When it comes to, if you're not a perfectionist, and if it comes to a case of, I just want to be able to succeed at something, and you feel that anywhere you put that brick always ends up in the wrong place, and it always ends up kind of ruining my situation and going worse. What are you planning to build? And the reason why it's important to kind of know what you're building, I feel, is because how are you supposed to know where you're putting these bricks, or how are you supposed to know the way or the place where you're supposed to put these bricks if you don't know what you're building? And that's a question of like life in general. It's like, that's obviously a question of purpose. Like, what what is a purpose? How are you supposed to know your purpose? How are you supposed to suddenly be like, especially in the moments where you got the sack on your back, whether you're ignoring it or whether or not it's completely filled your mind, it can be really hard to figure out, in one sense, with ignoring it, what am I supposed to build and with what? And obviously with this big stack of bricks over your shoulder, how am I supposed to think of what that is when this is obsessed in my mind? And I think in those moments, you're kind of left with a gap of trying to figure out what is the purpose. And that can be a very, very, very difficult situation to be in. It can be very, very, very hard. And I want to say it can be. It usually very much is extremely hard. When it came to knowing what I was building, it's not a case of I know the entirety of what I can use these bricks for and what I can put in front of me. Instead, it's a case of finding where those bricks should go, in that, if that makes sense, and knowing that what I am building is constructive, based on which where I've placed it is encouraging. If you put it in the wrong place, question, okay, so why is that the wrong place? And question, what about that went wrong? What about it didn't go wrong? What about it felt for a moment that is constructive? And you want to do, instead of immediately being like, okay, this isn't going to work, and just being like, I can't seem to find anywhere to put it, spend more time just thinking about those particular moments which felt like something was clicking, or something that was going on that was constructive, and seeing where the parts that felt like it was completely eroded and rotted away. And I think once you begin to kind of weigh those things, you begin to kind of build an image of what kind of things are constructive and how many things aren't. And trust me, when it comes to things that aren't, there is a lot. There is a lot of things that are very eroding, or erosive, I guess. And once you kind of figure out where those points are, where those particular areas are, when it comes to knowing where those bricks can be, that is constructive, you can start building small chunks at a time. And I know it's something that feels, I want to move on from it now. I want to really pick up with my life. Sometimes things really do take time, and it really does sometimes feel like a long time. But the biggest difference is putting, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's a small little part of a brick, or even if it's something that feels the littlest bit constructive, if you're putting it there, that is immediately progress. That is, by definition, progress. And I think once you have that kind of knowing that you're making progress with something, or you knowing that even though, some of these bricks may erode, some of these areas that I might decide to do can go wrong, and it can really suck, knowing that a small part of that bolsters me to improve, or a small part of that I was able to live up to who I was, that can mean everything. And I think that's what you really want to focus on in terms of knowing where to put that brick, is even if it goes to the wrong place, even if you make that wrong decision, or even if something goes wrong there, it's okay. It's okay for it to erode. Just look out for those small bits that stick. Look out for those small bits that are constructive. You build more of a. It may be small at moments, but those small things become more small things, and that's how those small things become group of small things, and so on and so on. Before you know it, you're starting to know the areas where to put those bricks, and I think it's all part of that process. And it's often not instant. It's often a case of having to kind of go through that process, and it can really suck. But through that, you can build yourself something that you can see and be proud of. And I think knowing that really gives you an idea of kind of the area for purpose. And I think it can feel that there is no purpose when you look in front of you and you feel like you've seen nothing. But once you have those small pieces, even if it's small, growing, or even if there is anything sticking, if there's like a more dust as you're going, and sometimes it may not feel like that immediately. It may not feel that those first couple of bricks may feel that you can't seem to see anything there, but eventually just keep going, keep putting those bricks down, and trust that there is something there that will land on solid ground. There is something there that will provide a foundation, and there is something there that you can build a purpose from in life, and there is something there that can bolster you. And when it comes to obviously that big weight of sack of bricks, it's good that you've got those bricks coming in and then putting them in front of you. That's great. Obviously, not adding to your bag. But what about the sack of bricks in your bag? What about all the things that have weighed you down? What you feel grief about? What you feel resentment about? What you feel that it still weighs you down? And it's great that you're moving in these situations forward. But what about all this weight that's behind me, over my shoulder? Looking into that sack of bricks, it can feel like your definition sometimes. And what I mean by that is, you look back and see that, and you see that is who I am. That is the reason I should be putting bricks in the bag, more bricks in the bag, because that is the character I am. That is all I amount to. That is all I will ever be. That right there is a weight that I must carry because that is who I am. The reality is that doesn't need to define you. It doesn't need to define you. And what I mean by that is, instead of you and your essence being about that bag, the sack of bricks on your back, you can be more about what's in front of you and what the potential is in front of you, what those bricks can amount to, what those bricks can land on. That can be who you are, and those bricks don't come from those bricks don't come from nowhere. They do come from events. And what you can do with those bricks in your bag, you can take out a piece of a memory or a piece of grief that you feel, resentment over yourself about, or something that you feel is holding you down, and say to that moment the same thing you say to the bricks that you find now, or the bricks that you find in front of you, that I fell short here. I recognise that I fell short here. Why did I fall short here? And these are you find the reasons, or you think about the reasons, and you're like, because I was maybe down by the sack of bricks, or this happened that made me feel I couldn't do it, or I just didn't believe in myself that I could do it. Those kind of things. I see that and question, well, what could I have done in that moment? What could I have taken away? How could I have acted in that moment? Or what could I have done in that moment that would have built something? And take that brick, and it's kind of like snapping it in two and saying, this stuff doesn't need to be here because there's nothing I can do to change this. And this is that resentment, that kind of looking down on yourself kind of part of the brick. You don't need to use this part of the brick anymore. And it's a part of the brick that has weighed you down. It's a part of the brick that has been eroding in that sack all this time and weighing you down. And what you can do is take that chunk of what you could have done, what you feel, or how you felt you could have acted in the situation, and putting it in front of you with the bricks that you find as you continue to go forward. And before you know it, that sack of bricks on your back becomes a source of construction. It becomes a source of building that purpose. And it can feel weird because you look back and it's like, how could I find anything constructive from when I look back? When I look back, it's all just pain. It's all just, it's all just resentment. It's all just this, almost this like, it's almost just this weight. But as you acknowledge that, and as you can see that there are constructive things that you can learn from those things, you can take that out of your bag. You can throw the brick that it is eroding anyway, and it will continue to erode by itself in the corner. We don't need to worry about that. And we can put that part of the brick that's constructive into that purpose in front of us, and that's how we can find a constructive use for our past. And is it difficult? Very much so. And I think when you take those bricks out, it can feel like, whoa, okay, I don't really want to take that brick out. I don't want to think about that brick. But in those moments, just think about what you can build from that. What you can use, what you can create. From what you build, from what you add together, and what you construct in front of you. Just think about all the moments where you felt that you couldn't achieve or be supporting for another person, or I couldn't be present for that person, or I couldn't be who I wanted to be in that moment. Just think of who you can be from this point if you were to take that out and take that chunk and put it in that place. Sometimes it will erode, sometimes it won't, it won't sit the way you hoped it would, but from like going back on when we get those bricks coming in and putting them out, we can still take from that what is constructive, what builds into something, and what doesn't. And when we understand that, we understand more about ourselves. And as you do that, and obviously the hope is you continue to take those bricks out, you continue to build, and it's small bits at a time. May feel slow. You may get super fortunate and be like, oh wow, slap bang. Oftentimes it really doesn't look like that, but as you build, you can start to step back and realize I am building something. And I think once you realize I actually am building something here, it can really fill you with hope that there is a purpose there, and you can live up, and there is something you can live up to, and there's something you can trust that in doing this you can push for. So I did mention briefly earlier that I have dealt with depression, but I'm in a state of hope and not hopelessness, and I kind of want to explain the reasons why I personally am that way and why I personally moved away from hopelessness. So personally, I'm a Christian. I have faith in Christ, in Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And for me, in that analogy, so talking within that analogy state, instead of putting that brick to where I want it to be, I give that brick to Christ, if that makes sense. If I may explain a bit more of what I mean by that is, it's not a case of where being a Christian suddenly means that bag of bricks is gone. It doesn't at all. It doesn't mean he comes in and grabs those bricks away. But for me, it's a place I know where I can place my brick that I know in full confidence that it will always be taken and used and placed somewhere that will be constructive. I know that I have that confidence. I know as a fact that those bricks, as much as it may seem that's like, why is it over there? Or why is this happening? Or what, why am I seeing this? Or what's happening here? Like, what, I am unsure about this. There can be so many unsureties, but I know for a fact that those bricks go somewhere that is going to build me up. And that's partially, that is part of the hope. That is part of the hopefulness that I have, and why I feel hope instead of hopelessness. Because I know that in taking those bricks out and seeing those bricks I receive, by giving it to Him, I can be confident that they will go to the place that will be building me up. And there's a verse that really helps me with this. So the verse that really encourages me this, or reminds me of this, is Jeremiah 29:11. So the verse is, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." And that's why I give my bricks to Him, because He knows the plans He has for me. He knows what He sees in me. I know that His plans for me will prosper me and give me a future. I know that by giving those bricks to Him, what I will see in front of me and what will be built in front of me is something that is beyond what I can see in the moment of when I have that sack of bricks in my bag, when it's playing in my mind, when those bricks seem to be flooding in without, and then I realise, oh, wait a minute, I know that He has a plan for me. So I take each brick at a time, and I see, well, what could I have done here that's better? What did I do that was wrong? And I pray about it. I talk to Christ and say, this situation has been bothering me. This situation has been really affecting my mind and really weighing me down. Lord, I give this to you, and so that from this may be built a purpose. And from that, I feel this weight taken off me, and it's something that may not feel so direct at first. I think as you do it, it kind of feels, because I think you're so weighed down by the sack of bricks, it can feel that nothing's really changed. But I think as you continue to do that, it starts to feel that weight is gradually, moving down. So another verse that encouraged me with this, in terms of looking at that sack of bricks and realizing that it's something that can be constructive, is Romans 5:3-5. So, and that goes like this: "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." So when you see that verse, it's a very, very encouraging verse. I know that those sack of bricks, from what that is, and the suffering I've gone through in that being a weighing down thing and dragging me behind and holding me down, I know that from that suffering, I can find perseverance. And from that perseverance, I can find my character and who I am. and from that character, I am filled with hope. And in that sense, from that process of taking those bricks out, looking at it, knowing that in Christ, He will take that brick from me and use it to build me a purpose, I can know and trust that what I will have will be something in front of me. Even though at moments where I feel like I can't see what that is, and I don't know what it is, I can't see what it is, I know that in time and in construction and His working through our lives, He will build us a purpose, and from that it fills you this hope that really, I think, changes the whole story, it feels like, and it changed my whole story. It doesn't have to be the way it feels, and it doesn't have to be the end it feels it should be. It can be more. It can be fulfilled. It can be purposed. It can be, you can find joy in it. You can find happiness in it. And you can find peace in that. And even though it may feel like it may never be those things, it most certainly can be. And I think that's what this kind of analogy was about, and why I talked about scripture about it, and why I went so deep into it. I think because it's such a thing that's so close to me, and to the people that I know, and to my own journey as well, that I think I felt like I needed to say. And that's probably, I don't know if this is my first video or not, because my videos come out soon, but if I do get it out, this may be my first video, so welcome to the channel if it is. But yeah, I just hope this encouraged someone today. God bless. I hope you enjoyed the watch, and I hope you enjoyed the analogy. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was encouraging, and yeah, I'll see you next one.